The prison called Omega-7 floated alone in the darkness between stars. For 3,000 years it had never been broken. No prisoner had ever escaped. No rescue had ever worked. The prison was famous across 47 different star systems. Everyone knew its name. Everyone feared it. Warden Comus stood in his office and looked at the incoming ship. He was a tall alien from the Veltron species. His body had hard plates like armor. His eyes were dark and cold. He had run this prison for 20 years. In all that time, nothing had gone wrong. He was proud of that fact. His assistant Rixtal walked into the office. He had many eyes on long stalks that moved around to look at different things. He held up a data pad. Another prisoner is coming. A human this time. That makes 3 humans this month. Comus made a clicking sound with his mouth parts. It was how his species showed they did not care about something. Humans. Weak creatures from a small planet far away. They always think they are special. He had processed 17 humans during his time as warden. None of them had caused any real trouble. They complained for a while and then accepted their fate. Just like every other species, the transport ship connected to the docking port. Comus watched through the window as guards brought the new prisoner down the ramp. The human looked ordinary. He was average height for his kind. He had dark hair. He wore the orange prisoner suit that all new arrivals had to wear. His name was Day One. According to the files, Comus read the charges. This human had broken into computer systems. He had stolen secret information. Somehow he had found proof that important members of the Galactic Council were corrupt. He had exposed their crimes to everyone. That was why he was here. Political prisoners always came to Omega-7. The Council wanted them hidden away where no one could hear them talk. What made Comus pause was not the crime. It was the look on the human's face. Most new prisoners showed fear. Some showed anger. Others looked defeated and sad. This one showed nothing. His face was blank and calm. But his eyes were active. They looked at everything. He was studying the prison, learning it. Memorizing it, Comus felt a small uncomfortable feeling. He pushed it away. Cell Block 7, Section 14. Use standard procedures, he ordered. The guards moved Day One through the main corridor. Omega-7 was built like a giant wheel that spun in space. The spinning created artificial gravity so prisoners could walk normally. Every wall was made of neutronium alloy. It was one of the strongest materials in the galaxy. Nothing could break it except maybe a weapon from a battleship. The air itself was watched by thousands of sensors. They could detect the smallest chemical change or temperature shift. The cell blocks spread out from the center like spokes on a wheel. Each block held different types of prisoners. Section 14 was for political prisoners and important criminals. Day One's cell was a small cube, 3 meters on each side. It had a sleeping platform, a waste facility, a food dispenser that would make meals suitable for human biology. You will stay here. The lead guard was named Vess. He was from the Corthan species and spoke in a harsh voice. Do not try to talk to other prisoners. Do not try to damage anything. Do not try to access any computer systems. If you follow the rules, you will be treated fairly. If you break the rules, you will be punished. Day One sat down on the sleeping platform. He nodded once to show he understood. The guards left. They were satisfied that everything had gone normally. What the guards did not see was how Day One touched the sleeping platform. His fingers traced patterns on the surface. He was not just touching it randomly. He was feeling for vibrations, measuring the density, calculating the frequency of the structure. In the 17 minutes from the docking bay to his cell, he had counted guard rotations. He had memorized the layout of 3 corridors. He had identified 4 different security systems. In another part of the cell block, a prisoner named Hyunwoo heard the sounds of a new arrival. He had been in Omega-7 for 8 months. His crime was leading a rebellion on a mining colony. The mining company had refused to install basic safety equipment. 37 miners had died in accidents. Hyunwoo had organized the workers to fight back. They had stopped production. The Galactic Court did not care about the dead miners. They only cared that profits had been interrupted. So Hyunwoo was sent to prison for 15 years. He had tried to escape twice. Both times he had failed before really starting. The security systems were too smart, too connected. Every time he found a weakness, the computers adapted and closed it. He had given up hope. Now he just waited for his sentence to end. But something about the new prisoner felt different. Hyunwoo could not explain why. Just a feeling. In the control room, Comus looked at the security cameras. Everything appeared normal. The new human sat quietly in his cell. He seemed to be adjusting to his situation. Good. Another smooth intake. Another prisoner safely contained. Comus did not notice a tiny change in the power distribution to cell block 7. It was very small, less than 1%. So small that it was within normal range. The automatic systems compensated without anyone noticing. In his cell, Daewon lay down on the sleeping platform. Anyone watching would think he was resting. But he was not really resting. He was thinking, reviewing everything he had learned, building a mental map of the prison in his mind, identifying patterns in how the guards moved and how the systems worked. The Galactic Council had made a mistake sending him here. They had focused on his crimes, on the data he had stolen, on the secrets he had revealed. They had not asked the important question. How had a human from a young species managed to break through security that had protected the galaxy for thousands of years? They thought he had used special technology. Better equipment, some kind of advanced hacking tool. They did not understand the truth. The greatest weakness in any security system was not the technology. It was the thinking behind it. Galactic security was designed by species who thought in certain ways, who made certain assumptions about how things should work. They built layer after layer of defense, each one more complex than the last. Daewon had spent years studying these systems, not to break them with force, but to understand them, to see the patterns that their creators could not see. Every security system had a rhythm, a logic, a blind spot created by the very assumptions that made it seem perfect. Omega-7 was considered unbreakable because everyone believed it was unbreakable. That belief was about to be tested. 3 cells away from Daewon, another human prisoner named Ji-hai listened to the quiet sounds of the cell block. She had been here for 6 months. Her crime was performing surgery without permission. She had saved the lives of colonists that official doctors had refused to treat. The Galactic Medical Board did not allow humans to practice medicine outside approved rules. It did not matter how many lives she had saved. Ji-hai had stopped thinking about escape after the first month. She had seen what happened to prisoners who tried. The prison had ways of causing pain without leaving marks. Better to serve her time quietly and survive. But she had heard something in the corridor when the new prisoner arrived. The way the guards talked, the way they moved. Something was different about this one. On the sleeping platform, Daewon smiled slightly. His sentence was 3 years long. He planned to be gone in 3 weeks. The only question was whether he would leave alone or take others with him. The impossible prison was about to meet someone who did not believe in impossible. Daewon created his routine within the first 2 days. He ate when the food dispenser turned on. He exercised for exactly 1 hour every morning. He slept during the time the prison designated for rest. To anyone watching, he looked like a perfect prisoner, someone who was adjusting quickly to prison life. But every action had a purpose. The food dispenser activated on a timer connected to the main power grid. The exercise period let him test the cell dimensions over and over. He noticed tiny changes in the gravity pull. Sleep periods matched with reduced guard patrols. That was when the automatic systems took over most of the work. On the 3rd day, he spoke to Hyunwoo. The conversation happened during exercise time. Prisoners were allowed to stand near their cell barriers then. The energy field stopped physical contact but let sound pass through. The volume was reduced but words could still be heard. Hyunwoo had been doing pull-ups on a bar mounted to his wall when he heard the voice from 2 cells down. "You tried the ventilation system first." Hyunwoo stopped in the middle of his exercise. He turned around. He could not see the speaker clearly through the barrier's distortion. But the voice was definitely human. "Who are you?" "The new prisoner. You tried to escape 8 months ago. You used the maintenance shaft accessed through the air vent panel. You made it 40 meters before the automatic barrier sealed your route." Hyunwoo felt cold despite the controlled temperature. "How do you know that?" "Those records are classified. Secret, the ventilation panel in your cell has replacement bolts. Different metal than the originals. Someone had to repair it. Standard procedure after someone tries to break out." Daewon paused. "Your second attempt was more creative. You tried to corrupt the food dispenser programming. You wanted to create a link to the central computer systems. It failed because the dispensers run on isolated circuits, separate from everything else. Are you a guard? Is this some kind of trick? I am a prisoner. Same as you. Day one did some stretches. His movements looked casual to any observer. I noticed things, patterns, details that others miss. Hyun-woo thought about this. Prison had taught him to trust no one. But something in the stranger's voice suggested real observation, not manipulation. Why are you telling me this? Because you are going to help me leave this place, and I am going to help you leave too. The words hung in the air between them. Hyun-woo laughed. It was a bitter sound with no real humor. Escape from Omega 7? That is impossible. I learned that the hard way. Twice. Not impossible. Improbable. There is a difference. Daewon finished his stretches and sat cross-legged on his cell floor. Every system has weaknesses. This prison's weakness is its perfection. That makes no sense. The designers made Omega 7 too efficient. Everything is automated. Everything is monitored. Everything connects to central processing. They believed that more security layers meant absolute security. Daewon's voice got quieter. But complexity creates opportunity. Every connection is a potential path. Every automation is a pattern that can be learned. Every sensor is a system that can be understood. Hyun-woo moved closer to his barrier. You are talking about hacking the prison. The security codes change every 6 hours. The encryption constantly rotates. Specialists from 12 different species designed these systems to prevent exactly what you are describing. I am not talking about hacking. I am talking about thinking differently than the system expects. Before Hyun-woo could respond, exercise period ended. The barriers got stronger. A recorded voice announced return to normal cell protocols. Daewon stood up and walked back to his sleeping platform without another word. That night, Hyun-woo could not sleep. He replayed the conversation over and over in his mind. Part of him wanted to dismiss it as crazy talk, or maybe a trap. But another part of him recognized something in the stranger's confidence. It was not arrogance. It was certainty. The same certainty he had felt when organizing the mining rebellion. In the monitoring station, Comus reviewed the daily reports. Everything looked good. Prisoner compliance was at optimal levels. No incidents, no disturbances. The prison ran with perfect precision. He noted the brief conversation between 2 human prisoners during exercise period. But the recorded audio showed nothing concerning. Prisoners talked sometimes. It was expected behavior. As long as they stayed in their cells, conversation was harmless. He approved the next day's schedule and went to his quarters. He felt confident in the systems he managed. 3 cells down from Daewon, Ji-hai listened to the silence of the cell block. She wondered about the new arrival. She had been in Omega 7 for 6 months. Her crime was performing emergency surgery on colonists that official medical facilities refused to treat. The Galactic Medical Board did not tolerate humans practicing medicine outside approved limits. It did not matter that she had saved lives. Ji-hai had given up thoughts of escape after the first month. She had seen what happened to prisoners who tried. The prison had ways of making resistance painful without leaving physical marks. Better to serve her time quietly and survive. But she had heard the conversation between Daewon and Hyun-woo. Sound carried in unexpected ways through the cell block. Something about the new prisoner's words made sense to her. She had spent years studying different alien species and their biology. One lesson had stayed constant. Every species had blind spots created by their own way of thinking. Maybe a human could see what other species could not. The next morning, Daewon began the second phase of his plan. During breakfast, he let his food dispenser malfunction. Not obviously. Just a slight timing delay between his request and the delivery. The kind of minor problem that automatic systems would record but not mark as critical. When the maintenance drone arrived to check the unit, Daewon watched carefully. The drone was a small machine built for efficiency. It moved through the cell block on a set route. It scanned the dispenser, ran diagnostics, left within 4 minutes. Daewon had learned 3 important facts from watching it. First, maintenance drones worked on their own network separate from security systems. Second, they followed specific routes and schedules. Third, they carried authorization codes that let them pass through cell barriers temporarily. That afternoon during exercise period, he spoke to Hyun-woo again. Do you know how many maintenance drones service this cell block? Hyun-woo had been waiting for another conversation. He answered immediately. 3. They rotate on an 8-hour schedule. Correct. And do you know what powers them? Standard fusion cells, same as most galactic equipment. Wrong. Daewon did his stretches with the same casual look as before. They use quantum batteries, smaller and more efficient. But they have a specific electromagnetic signature. The security sensors are set to ignore that signature. Otherwise, the drones would trigger alarms every time they passed through a barrier. Yunwoo began to understand. You want to disguise yourself as a maintenance drone, not disguise. Mimic. If we can copy the electromagnetic signature, the barriers will not register our movement as unauthorized. That is impossible. We have no equipment, no tools, no materials. Daewon smiled. We have everything we need. We just have to think about it differently. Ji-hai listened from her cell. She felt something she had not experienced in months. Hope. It was dangerous and fragile, but it was hope. The pieces were coming together. 3 humans, each with unique skills and knowledge, beginning to work toward a goal that every other species in the galaxy believed was impossible. Komaz reviewed his evening reports. He noted nothing unusual. The prison continued to operate perfectly, exactly as designed, exactly as expected, and that perfect predictability was exactly what Daewon needed. The breakthrough came from an unexpected place. Ji-hee had been silent for 3 days. She listened to the conversations between Daewon and Hyunwoo. She analyzed their planning. On the 4th day during exercise period, she spoke. The medical scanners. Both men stopped what they were doing. Daewon responded first. Which scanners? Every cell has passive medical monitoring. Biosensors built into the walls that track prisoner health. They send out a low-frequency electromagnetic pulse to read biological data. The same frequency range as the quantum batteries in the maintenance drones. Ji-hai moved closer to her barrier. I noticed it during my first week here. The scanners caused interference with my implant. You have an implant? Hyunwoo asked. Medical monitor. Required for human doctors working in mixed species environments. It regulates my body chemistry when I am exposed to alien diseases. She paused. The interference only happened when maintenance drones passed nearby. The frequencies were overlapping. Daewon processed this information quickly. Can you control your implant's output? Within limits. It has manual override for emergency situations, but the range is small. Maybe 2 meters. 2 meters is enough. Daewon sat against his cell wall. He was calculating possibilities in his mind. If we can synchronize multiple implants and create a resonance pattern, we might generate a signature strong enough to fool the barrier sensors. Hyunwoo shook his head. I do not have an implant. Neither do you, I assume. No, but we can create one. Daewon looked at the food dispenser in his cell. The dispensers use molecular assembly to create meals. They break down base proteins and rebuild them according to species requirements. The same technology can assemble other structures. Ji-hai understood immediately. You want to reprogram the dispenser to build electronic components. The dispensers are isolated from main systems, but they still need programming updates. Those updates come through the maintenance drones. If we can capture an update sequence during the next maintenance cycle, we can modify the dispenser's molecular templates. That would require perfect timing, Hyunwoo said, and access to the maintenance drone's communication protocol, which we will have. Daewon stood and moved to his dispenser. Watch the pattern. Over the next hour, Daewon demonstrated his technique. It looked like he was just making simple meal requests, but he did it at specific intervals. This created a sequence that caused minor processing errors, not enough to trigger alarms, just enough to log performance issues. By the time exercise period ended, he had generated 17 separate error codes. Tomorrow when maintenance arrives, the drone will run extended diagnostics, he explained. That will give us a 3-minute window when the drone's communication buffer is accessible. Ji-hai, I need you to trigger your implant at maximum output during that window. The electromagnetic interference will corrupt the drone's transmission slightly, not enough for it to notice, but enough to leave fragments of code in the dispenser's temporary memory. And then? Ji-hai asked. Then we reassemble those fragments into something useful. The next morning arrived like every other day. Meals dispensed. Prisoners ate. Guards walked their patrols. Everything normal. Everything expected. At exactly 1000 hours, the maintenance drone entered cell block 7. It went to Daewon's cell and began diagnostics on the malfunctioning dispenser. 3 cells away, Ji-Hai triggered her implant's emergency override. It flooded the local area with a burst of electromagnetic noise. The drone's sensors flickered. A minor disruption. It compensated automatically and continued its work. 4 minutes later, it left. The logged errors were resolved. To anyone watching, nothing unusual had happened. But in the dispenser's temporary memory, fragments of code now existed that should not be there. Pieces of the drone's communication protocol, corrupted and incomplete. But present Daewon spent the rest of the day appearing to read on his cell's entertainment display. In reality, he was using the display's limited interface to access the dispenser's maintenance logs. The process was painfully slow. It required indirect methods to navigate systems never meant for prisoner access. But by evening, he had extracted the code fragments and started his analysis. It worked. He told the others during the next exercise period, "I have partial protocol data. Not enough to build a complete solution, but enough to start. How long will this take?" Hyunwoo asked. Patience had never been his strength. 3 weeks, maybe 4. We need to collect more fragments. Build a complete picture of how the maintenance systems communicate. And we need components from molecular assembly. Ji-Hai confirmed. What exactly are we building? Resonators. Simple devices that can mimic the electromagnetic signature of a maintenance drone. If we can create enough of them and time the activation correctly, we can generate a moving signature. The barriers will read it as authorized passage. The barriers will still detect our biological mass, Hyunwoo pointed out. Yes, which is why we need to mask it. Daewon had clearly thought through every detail. The maintenance drones carry waste material, organic refuse from the dispensers, used components, recycled matter. The barriers are set to ignore that mass as long as it comes with the correct authorization signature. We hide inside the mass signature. Ji-Hai saw the brilliance of the approach. The plan did not fight the security systems directly. It used the system's own assumptions against them. The barriers were designed to stop prisoners, not maintenance equipment. By appearing as maintenance equipment, they could slip through protocols never designed to question authorized signatures. There is still the problem of navigation, Hyunwoo said. Even if we get past the barriers, we need to know where we are going. This prison is massive. Without guidance, we would be lost in minutes. The maintenance drones follow specific routes, Daewon replied. Those routes are programmed based on the prison layout. If we can extract the route data from the code fragments, we will have a complete map. Over the following weeks, the 3 humans worked with patience that would have impressed their captors, if anyone had been watching for it. But no one was watching. Why would they? The prisoners were contained. The systems were functioning. Everything was normal. Daewon caused minor malfunctions every few days. Each one brought another maintenance drone visit. Each visit gave them more code fragments. Ji-Hai practiced controlling her implant's output. She learned to create precise interference patterns. Hyunwoo used his knowledge of mining equipment to identify which molecular structures could be assembled from base proteins. These would create the electronic components they needed. The food they ate became raw material. The waste they produced became cover. The systems designed to monitor them became tools for their purpose. In the monitoring station, Kyomaz noted a slight increase in maintenance visits to Cell Block 7. Nothing alarming. Old prisons needed maintenance. He approved additional resources and moved on to other matters. On the 18th day, Daewon successfully assembled the first resonator. It was crude, built from proteins restructured into conductive polymers, but it worked. When he activated it, the device produced an electromagnetic signature nearly identical to a maintenance drone's quantum battery. Nearly is not enough, Ji-Hee observed when they tested it during exercise period. The barriers will detect the difference, which is why we need 3 of them working in synchronized pattern, Daewon explained. The interference between multiple sources will blur the individual signatures. The barriers will read it as a single slightly degraded authorization code. Normal variance acceptable. By day 21, they had built 3 resonators. They had extracted enough protocol data to map the maintenance routes. The path from Cell Block 7 to the docking bay required passing through 17 security checkpoints. 12 separate barrier systems. At least 3 guard stations. When do we go? Hyunwoo asked. Daewon checked the schedule he had memorized. 4 days. During the maintenance cycle overlap, When two drones are servicing adjacent sections, the barriers will be calibrating for double authorization signals. Our additional signature will register as system echo. Background noise, 4 days, Jihai repeated. 4 days until they attempted something no prisoner had achieved in 3,000 years. 4 days until they proved that human cleverness could accomplish what alien technology thought impossible. In his quarters, Koma slept soundly. He was confident in the perfect systems surrounding him. In their cells, 3 humans prepared to show why confidence in systems could be humanity's greatest advantage. The galaxy was about to learn that unbreakable was not the same as unbeatable. The night before the escape, none of them slept well. Jihai ran through medical scenarios in her mind. She thought about what might go wrong with their bodies under stress. Hyunwoo reviewed the route over and over. He memorized every turn and checkpoint. Daewon lay still. His thoughts focused on the countless things that could ruin their plan. At 4 in the morning, the prison entered its lowest activity period. Guard shifts were changing. Automated systems ran diagnostic routines. Prisoner monitoring reduced to passive observation. It was the moment Daewon had been waiting for. He pressed his hand against the food dispenser panel in a specific sequence. The device hummed. Then it began assembling the final components they needed. Within 6 minutes, 3 resonators sat concealed inside what looked like unfinished meal portions. Daewon sent them through the cell block's waste disposal system. The pneumatic tubes connected each cell to central processing. The resonators are in position. He whispered during the brief period when barrier intensity reduced for waste collection. Jihai, activate your implant at minimum sustainable output. We need to establish the baseline signature. Jihai did as instructed. A low hum came from her cell. It was too quiet for standard monitoring to detect. But the sensitive equipment Daewon had built could hear it. The resonators responded. They created a harmonic pattern that mimicked maintenance drone authorization. Hyunwoo, when the barriers cycle in 90 seconds, move to your cell entrance. Do not touch the field. Just position yourself there. The former rebellion leader moved with practiced silence. Despite months of being locked up, he had kept himself in good physical condition. Now that discipline would be tested. Daewon counted down in his mind. At exactly 4:17 in the morning, 2 maintenance drones entered cell block 7 from opposite ends. Their routes were synchronized for efficient coverage. The barriers adjusted to let both drones through. Now, all 3 resonators activated at the same time. The electromagnetic pattern they created merged with Jihai's implant output. This made a complex signature. The barrier sensors read it as expected maintenance activity. The barriers did not turn off. They simply stopped seeing the prisoners as unauthorized presences. Daewon stepped through his cell entrance as if walking through empty air. The feeling was strange. Every instinct told him the energy field should resist, should burn, should stop him. Instead, he passed through without any problem. Hyunwoo and Jihai followed. 3 humans stood in the corridor for the first time since their imprisonment. Stay close, Daewon instructed. The signature has a limited range. If we separate more than 5 meters, the barriers will reactivate and lock us in position. They moved together. They followed the maintenance drone routes Daewon had memorized. The corridor walls gleamed with the dull shine of neutronium alloy. Every surface was monitored. Every air current was measured. Yet the security systems stayed quiet. They were fooled by the simple trick of appearing to be something they were not. The first checkpoint came within 2 minutes. A guard station occupied by a Korthan security officer named Velkun. He sat reviewing display screens. He monitored dozens of camera feeds. Standard rules required visual confirmation of anything unusual, but nothing looked unusual. The monitors showed empty corridors. The sensors reported normal activity. What Velkun did not see was 3 humans passing 15 meters behind him. Their movement was synchronized with the maintenance drone's patrol pattern. The sensors registered their mass but labeled it as waste material being transported. Expected. Normal. Not worth attention. They reached the first barrier junction at 4:23. This was a critical point where 3 corridors met. It required carefully timed passage to avoid sensor overlap. Daewon had calculated the window at about 8 seconds. When I signal, move directly across to the maintenance shaft entrance. Do not stop. Do not look back. He watched the patrol patterns on the visible security monitors. 2 drones approaching from different directions. The barriers adjusting, the sensors recalibrating. Go, they ran across the junction. Jihai stumbled slightly. Her legs were weak from months of limited exercise, but Yunwu caught her arm and kept her moving. They reached the maintenance shaft entrance as the barriers cycled back to full security mode. The shaft was narrow. It was designed for drones rather than people. They crawled single file through darkness. They followed the path Daewon had extracted from the maintenance protocols. The shaft connected different sections of the prison. It bypassed the main corridors where guard patrols were heaviest. How much further? Jihai whispered. The tight space pressed against her. It triggered fear she had not known she had. 300 meters to the next access point. Daewon replied. Then we crossed through the secondary detention block. Secondary block houses violent offenders. Hyunwoo noted. Higher security. More guards, also more maintenance traffic. The automated systems work harder there. More breakdowns. More repairs. More opportunity to blend in. They came out of the shaft into a monitoring station. Thankfully, it was empty during this shift change. Daewon accessed a terminal. His fingers moved with practiced skill. He was not hacking the system. That would trigger immediate alarms. Instead, he was reading it, learning its current state, adapting their route to real-time conditions. Guard patrol delayed in Sector 9. Maintenance drone malfunction in Sector 12. We have a clear path through Sector 8 if we move now. They did not question him. Hyunwoo had seen enough to trust Daewon's ability to read systems. Jihai had stopped doubting long ago. They moved through Sector 8 while security attention focused elsewhere. Ghosts in a machine that did not believe ghosts could exist. At 4:37, Komas woke up in his quarters. He felt troubled by something he could not identify. A feeling, a sense that something was wrong. He turned on his personal terminal and looked at the prison status reports. Everything showed normal. All systems working, all prisoners contained. He dismissed the feeling as a leftover from a dream and went back to sleep. In Sector 11, the 3 humans paused at another junction. Ahead was the most dangerous section of their route. A corridor that led directly past the warden's office and the central security hub. No maintenance shafts gave alternate paths. No shortcuts existed. They would have to walk through the heart of the prison's surveillance network. The security hub processes data from every sensor in real time. Jihai said. How do we pass without being detected? We do not pass without being detected, Daewon replied. We pass while being detected as something else. He pulled out the 3 resonators. The devices looked crude, barely functional, but they had brought them this far. The security hub expects to see maintenance drones in this corridor. It sees them 20 times per day. The operators stop paying close attention to routine traffic, but we are not drones. Hyunwoo pointed out. No, we are maintenance drones with unusual mass readings. Equipment malfunction. Calibration error. Nothing that needs immediate response. Daewon adjusted the resonators. The key is confidence. Systems respond to patterns. If we move like we belong here with the right authorization signature, the systems will accept us. They walked down the corridor at a steady pace. Not hurrying, which would suggest escape. Not creeping, which would suggest stealth. Just walking as if they had every right to be there. The resonators hummed their false authorization. The sensors noted their passage and labeled it as routine maintenance activity. Behind reinforced glass, 3 security operators watched their screens. One of them glanced at a display showing the corridor. He saw the mass signature, saw the authorization code, saw nothing that needed action. He returned his attention to a more interesting feed showing an argument between prisoners in Sector 4. The humans passed through the most heavily monitored section of Omega-7 without raising any alarms. Not through stealth or technology or force, through understanding, through recognizing that the most advanced security system was still built on assumptions, and assumptions could be used by anyone who thought differently than the system's designers. At 4:49, they reached the docking bay access corridor. Beyond this point was freedom, but also the greatest challenge. The docking bay had independent security, separate from the main prison. Different sensors, different protocols, different assumptions. Daewon studied the entrance. He analyzed the security measures visible from their position. The docking bay seals are pressure sensitive. They open for arriving ships but lock down if they detect unauthorized exit attempts. We need to make the system think a ship is leaving. How? Hyunwoo asked. Daewon smiled. By doing exactly what they expect us not to do. We are going to trigger every alarm in this section except the one that matters. Daewon moved to a wall panel and with deliberate intent, pulled the manual fire suppression lever. Instantly alarms screamed throughout the section. Sprinkler systems activated. Emergency lights flashed red and white. Water poured from ceiling vents. Throughout the prison, security teams scrambled to respond to what appeared to be a major fire emergency. In the confusion, with guards rushing toward the alarm site and automated systems focused on fire suppression protocols, Daewon led his companions toward the docking bay. The chaos masked their movement. The urgency of the fire alarm overrode routine security measures. Everyone was looking at the fire. No one was looking at three wet figures moving through the smoke and flashing lights. They pulled emergency evacuation suits from a storage locker near the bay entrance. The bright yellow suits were meant for personnel escaping dangerous situations. In the smoke and confusion, they looked like part of the emergency response team rather than escaped prisoners. The resonators kept broadcasting their false authorization signal. The stressed security systems, overwhelmed with fire protocols, simply accepted the signatures without checking deeper. There. Daewon pointed to a small transport vessel docked at berth 7. That one. It is a supply runner. Automated pilot systems. Minimal crew requirement. How do we get inside? Ji-hai asked. Her voice was tight with tension. The same way we got this far. We make the system think we are supposed to be there. Daewon approached the ship's access ramp. He pulled out a small device he had built from the resonator components. This will broadcast a standard maintenance authorization code. The ship's computer will think we are the scheduled inspection team. He activated the device. The ship's access ramp lowered with a smooth hydraulic hiss. The three humans climbed aboard quickly. Behind them, security teams continued to fight the non-existent fire. Comas had been woken by the emergency alarms. He was coordinating the response from the central command center. His attention was completely focused on the fire suppression efforts. Inside the transport ship, Daewon moved to the pilot console. Hyunwoo secured the hatch. Ji-hai checked the ship's systems. Everything appeared functional. The vessel was fueled and ready for its next scheduled supply run. Do you know how to fly this? Hyunwoo asked. I know how to make it fly itself. Daewon's fingers danced across the control panel. These automated ships follow pre-programmed routes. I just need to convince it that its scheduled departure time is now instead of 6 hours from now. The console beeped. Warnings flashed on the screen. Departure window not authorized. Requesting clearance confirmation. Daewon had anticipated this. He uploaded a modified version of the maintenance protocols he had extracted over the past weeks. The ship's computer processed the data. The warnings changed. Emergency evacuation protocol accepted. Clearance granted. The transport vessel's engines hummed to life. Outside, dock workers scattered as the ship began its undocking sequence. Someone finally noticed something was wrong. An alarm different from the fire alert began to sound. This one was specific. Unauthorized departure detected, but it was too late. The transport ship had already separated from the docking clamps. Its automated systems were executing what they believed was an authorized emergency evacuation. The prison's external defenses were designed to stop incoming threats, not outgoing vessels with proper authorization codes. In the command center, Comas stared at his displays in disbelief. A ship was leaving without his approval. During a fire emergency, he pulled up the security footage from the docking bay, rewound to 10 minutes earlier, watched 3 figures in evacuation suits board the transport. He ordered an immediate prisoner count. The results came back within seconds. 3 prisoners missing from cell block 7, all human, the new one. Comas felt ice in his chest, the one who had been so quiet, so compliant. It had all been an act, a performance to make them believe he had accepted his imprisonment, while the entire time he had been studying, planning, waiting, locked down all remaining ships. Comas ordered, send out a distress signal, alert the Galactic Security Fleet. I want that transport intercepted before it reaches jump distance. His staff moved with frantic energy, but even as they worked, Comas knew the truth. The transport had a significant head start, and worse, it was using automated systems that made it appear legitimate to any scanning vessels. By the time the fleet could respond, the prisoners would be long gone. On the transport ship, Daewon monitored their distance from the prison. 5,000 kilometers, 10,000, 20,000. The prison was shrinking in the rear displays, becoming just another structure in the vast emptiness of space. We did it, Hyunwoo said quietly. He could barely believe his own words. We actually did it. Ji-hai sat down heavily in one of the passenger seats. Her hands were shaking. The adrenaline that had kept her moving was fading, leaving exhaustion in its place. 3,000 years. No one has ever escaped. Until now, we are not safe yet. Day one remained focused on the controls. They will send ships after us, fast military vessels. We need to reach jump distance before they arrive, and we need to change our trajectory so they cannot predict our destination. How long until we can jump? Hyunwoo asked. 47 minutes at current speed. Day one entered new coordinates into the navigation system. I am programming a randomized jump sequence. Multiple short jumps instead of one long one. Harder to track. Where are we going? Ji-hee wondered. Somewhere they will not look for us. Day one smiled slightly. I may have mentioned earlier that I exposed corruption in the Galactic Council. What I did not mention is that I kept copies of all that evidence, hidden in secure locations. That evidence is very valuable to certain people who want to see the corrupt officials removed from power. You are talking about allies, Hyunwoo understood. People who will protect us. People who will benefit from what we know, which amounts to the same thing. Day one checked the distance readout again. 35,000 kilometers. The council members I exposed were not the only corrupt ones. There are others. An entire network of officials taking bribes, manipulating votes, selling positions. I documented all of it, but I was caught before I could release everything. Why not release it before you were arrested? Sci-Fi asked, because I needed leverage. If I released everything at once, I would have no protection, nothing to bargain with. But now I have something they want, and they have something I want. Freedom, the ship's sensors detected incoming vessels, 3 fast attack cruisers, military grade. Closing quickly, they found us faster than I expected. Day one adjusted their course. 15 minutes until jump distance. They will reach weapons range in 12 minutes. Can we make it? Hyunwoo moved to the tactical display. If they do not disable our engines first. Day one diverted more power to the rear shields. These transport ships are not built for combat, but they are built to survive rough conditions. The shields should hold long enough. The prison's defense fleet opened fire. Energy beams lanced through space. Most missed. The transport's small size made it a difficult target at this range. But one beam clipped the rear shield. The ship shuddered. Alarms beeped. Shield strength at 70%. Ji-hai read from her console. 10 minutes to jump distance. Day one kept their course erratic, making them harder to hit. The prison ships are designed for short-range defense, not pursuit. Their weapons will lose effectiveness as we gain distance. Another barrage of fire. This time 2 beams connected. The shields flared bright. More alarms, shield strength at 40%. Ji-hai reported, 5 minutes to jump. Daewon watched the countdown. The prison ships were firing continuously now, throwing everything they had at the escaping transport. But the range was increasing. Their accuracy was dropping. One more hit and our shields will fail, Hyunwoo said. Then we better not get hit one more time. Daewon threw the transport into a spinning maneuver. The artificial gravity compensated, but they still felt the motion. Energy beams passed through the space they had occupied a second earlier. 2 minutes to jump. The prison ships pushed their engines harder, trying to close the distance. But the transport was lighter, more maneuverable. Daewon used every trick he knew to keep them alive. 1 minute, a final desperate barrage from the prison fleet. Dozens of energy beams filled space. The transport weaved between them like a fish swimming through a net. One beam grazed the shield, then another. The shield generators screamed in protest. Jump distance achieved, the navigation computer announced in a calm, automated voice. Daewon activated the jump drive. Reality twisted. Space folded. The transport vessel vanished from normal space, leaving 3 frustrated prison ships firing at empty vacuum. Inside the transport, 3 humans felt the universe shift around them. When reality stabilized again, they were 100 light years away. The prison was far behind them. Unable to track. Unable to follow, we did it, Ji-hai said again. This time with more conviction. We really did it, Hyunwoo laughed. A real laugh this time, full of relief and joy. The unbreakable prison, broken by 3 humans with no weapons and no ships, just determination and a different way of thinking. 3 days after the escape, News of the Omega-7 breach spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Every news network carried the story. The prison that had held for 3,000 years had been broken. Not by an army, not by advanced technology, not by a massive rescue operation, but by 3 humans working with nothing but their minds and patience. The Galactic Council held an emergency session. Koma stood before them, his body language showing defeat and shame. He had been warden of the most secure facility in known space. Now he would be remembered as the warden who lost prisoners to an escape that should have been impossible. Explain how this happened. The council chairwoman was a Dravik named Cornessa. Her forearms gestured with barely controlled anger. 3 prisoners, humans. A species barely 2 centuries into space travel. How did they bypass security systems designed by the greatest minds in the galaxy? Comus had spent 3 days reviewing every recording, every log file, every sensor reading. The answer was both simple and humiliating. They did not bypass the security systems. They used them. They made the systems believe they were authorized maintenance activity. They exploited the one thing we never considered a vulnerability, which was, Cornessa demanded, our own assumptions. Comas said quietly. We designed Omega-7 to stop prisoners from escaping through force or hacking. We never considered someone might escape by making the prison think they were not escaping at all. Every security measure we had worked perfectly, but they worked perfectly at identifying and stopping threats we expected, not threats we could not imagine. The council chamber filled with angry voices, different species arguing in different languages, all saying variations of the same thing. How could humans outsmart systems designed by superior civilizations? How could primitive beings defeat advanced technology? One council member, an elderly Telvik named Sormon, raised a tentacle for silence. Perhaps that is precisely why they succeeded. We built our security based on how we think, our logic, our assumptions about how escapes happen. Humans think differently. They see patterns we miss. They find solutions we never consider because those solutions violate our understanding of how things should work. Are you suggesting human thinking is superior to ours? Another council member asked with indignation. I am suggesting it is different, Sormon replied calmly. And in this case, that difference was an advantage. We have become so confident in our technology that we forgot the oldest truth. No system is unbeatable if you understand it well enough. The debate continued for hours. But the conclusion was unavoidable. Omega-7 would need to be completely redesigned. Every other maximum security facility in the galaxy would need upgrades. And most humbling of all, they would need to consult with human security experts to identify blind spots in their thinking. Meanwhile, the transport ship carrying Daewon, Hyunwoo, and Jihai made its final jump. They arrived at a small independent station on the edge of civilized space. The station was called Haven. It was run by species and individuals who existed outside the official government structures. Some were criminals. Others were political dissidents. Many were simply people who preferred freedom over order. A tall woman met them at the docking port. She was human, perhaps in her 50s, with sharp eyes and a confident stance. Her name was Bora. She was one of the most successful information brokers in the independent sectors. So you are the man who broke Omega-7. Bora studied Daewon with open curiosity. I was not sure you would actually make it, but I am glad you did. The evidence you promised to share will be very valuable. The evidence is secure, Daewon said. But before I share it, I need guarantees. Protection for me and my companions. New identities. Safe passage to locations of our choosing already arranged. Bora gestured for them to follow her deeper into the station. The council has many enemies. People who have been waiting for proof of their corruption. Your evidence will start a political earthquake. Those people are very motivated to keep you alive and happy. They walked through the station's main corridor. Haven was a chaotic mix of species and cultures. No uniforms, no security checkpoints, no surveillance that anyone admitted to. It was the opposite of the ordered, controlled environment of Omega-7. To the 3 former prisoners, it felt like paradise. What about the others? Jihai asked suddenly. The other prisoners still trapped in Omega-7. The ones who did not get to escape, what about them? Bora asked. They deserve freedom too. Many of them are political prisoners like us. People who challenged corrupt systems. People who stood up for what was right. Daewon looked at Jihai, then at Hyunwoo. Both of them had the same expression. They had escaped, but they had not forgotten the hundreds of others still locked in cells throughout the galaxy. prisoners who deserved justice but would never get it under the current system. You are thinking about going back, Bora said with surprise. Not to Omega-7, obviously, but to help others escape from other prisons, not just escapes. Hyunwoo said. Reform. The whole galactic prison system is designed to silence dissent and protect the powerful. It needs to change. That is a dangerous path, Bora warned. The Council will hunt you forever if you start liberating prisoners across the galaxy. They are already hunting us, Daewon pointed out. We might as well give them a good reason. Besides, we proved something at Omega-7. We proved that human ingenuity can overcome systems built by older civilizations. Not because we are stronger or have better technology, but because we think differently. We see possibilities they miss. Over the following weeks, word of the Omega-7 escape spread beyond official channels. Prisoners in facilities across the galaxy heard the story. It gave them hope. If 3 humans could break the unbreakable prison, maybe freedom was possible for others too. Underground networks began to form. Information brokers like Bora started collecting data on prison vulnerabilities. Political dissidents coordinated efforts to expose corruption. And at the center of it all, 3 former prisoners worked to share what they had learned. Daewon released the evidence of council corruption in carefully timed installments. Each release caused political upheaval. Council members resigned. Some were arrested. Others fled to independent sectors to avoid prosecution. The balance of galactic power began to shift. Ji-hai used her medical knowledge to help escaped prisoners dealing with health issues from imprisonment. She also trained others in her techniques, teaching them to see patterns in biological systems the way Daewon saw patterns in computer systems. Hyunwoo became a coordinator for resistance movements across multiple systems. His experience leading the mining rebellion proved valuable. He understood how to organize people who had been beaten down by systems they thought were unbeatable. 6 months after the Omega-7 escape, the Galactic Council issued a statement. They acknowledged systemic problems in their prison systems. They announced reforms, independent oversight, better treatment of political prisoners, investigation of false convictions. It was not enough. It would never be enough to undo all the harm that had been done. But it was a start. And it had all begun because 3 humans refused to accept that any prison was truly unbreakable. In a small apartment on Haven Station, Daewon sat at a desk covered with data pads and holographic displays. He was analyzing the security systems of another maximum security facility. Looking for patterns, finding weaknesses, preparing to help another group of prisoners achieve the impossible. Hyunwoo walked in carrying food. Still working? You need to rest sometimes. There are 73 political prisoners in the Krelvin facility. Daewon did not look up from his work. 41 of them are scheduled for mind-wiping next month. Their personalities will be erased, replaced with compliant programming. I need to find a way to get them out before that happens. You will. Hyunwoo set down the food. You always do. That is your gift. Seeing solutions where everyone else sees walls. Ji-hai joined them, looking tired but satisfied. I just got word from the Talvin system. The prisoners we helped escape last month made it to safe territory. All 27 of them. She smiled. They want to join our network. Help others the way we helped them. Daewon finally looked up from his work. In the old stories from Earth, there were heroes who fought impossible odds, who challenged systems that seemed unbeatable, who proved that determination and clever thinking could overcome raw power. I used to think those were just stories. Inspiration but not reality. And now? Hyunwoo asked. Now I think humans have been preparing for this role for our entire history. Every time we solved a problem others thought impossible. Every time we found a new way around an obstacle. Every time we refused to accept that something could not be done. We were training ourselves, getting ready for the moment when we would step onto the galactic stage. Ji-hai looked out the window at the stars beyond. The galaxy thought they knew what humans were, a young species unremarkable, limited by primitive technology and short history. But they were wrong. They measured us by their standards. Daewon agreed. They forgot that sometimes the most powerful tool is not the most advanced one. Sometimes it is simply the ability to think differently, to question assumptions, to see what others cannot see because they are trapped in their own patterns of thought.